Conflict. This is my submission on listening to the Mars Hill podcast, as well as answering a few of the questions. First, conflict is super uncomfortable. I feel like a lot of people are averse to it, but it's extremely unavoidable, it feels like. But just to answer the few questions that we were prompted to ask, when I got in a recent conflict with one of my community group members, it was really just a way that she had hurt my feelings, and I didn't share that it hurt my feelings in the moment. And so it honestly had created some tension between us and a little bit of reading into things that she said after that because I never gave her feedback of where she hurt me. And it really just started to boil over of, man, I really need to let her know that what she said to me hurt my feelings. And so it wasn't as explicit as us disagreeing. Rather, the conflict was something that was going on internally with me of I was starting to assume negative things about her based on the way that she had given me feedback one time. And I could just continue to build the narrative that she was against me, which therefore made me less inclined to share with her. And so basically, what happened is her and I got coffee and we just were catching up on a few things. And I just really leveled with her and I said, hey, a few weeks ago, you made a comment and it really made me feel, XYZ. I'm going to assume that that wasn't your intention, but you do need to know that that made me feel that way. And I don't want to have bitterness or frustration towards you. And so I need to let you know. And she received it really well. She was greatly apologetic. And just as I had presumed, she was like, hey, I had zero intention of sounding that way. Which I always find that over communication in conflict situations is way better than under communication. I would so rather over communicate thoughts, feelings, and even motive so as to not hurt folks. So that is how we resolved that conflict. And then ultimately, how that drained me physically and mentally is I was always assuming that I was doing something wrong around her. And so I was very on the reserve, very protective, didn't want to say the wrong thing that would ruffle feathers. And it truly just made me feel on edge, and I didn't wasn't at peace. We weren't reconciled, and that is just unsettling, especially with a believer that you're close with. So that's kind of how it drained me mentally, physically, not as much emotionally. I would say more spiritually because I felt more on guard around her. And then after the podcast, how would I handle conflict differently? I feel like that's always case by case and looks so different in each situation. But really, what, especially with Mars Hill, is I think having systems in place of accountability from a biblical and theological perspective early on in our spiritual journeys rather than later on. Because it can just prevent, and I think you could do that from an accountability partner. I definitely have not leveraged my accountability partner model as much recently. I have a small community group that I'm a part of, but could lean into them a little bit more. And I think too, with Mars Hill, gosh, mega churches are tricky. I don't believe that that is the model of church that they should be that large. I think it becomes a problem when it's over about 1,000. 500 to 1,000 feels like a lot of members to manage. And so I think in my mind, there would need to be systems of accountability in place at each level, even at the pastoral level. Mark Driscoll having someone directly accountable to him who's outside of the church. Because if it's someone in the church, then there could be an ulterior motive of them just trying to win over the um, affection of the pastor. So overall, conflict, always learn so much from it, and it is so uncomfortable. But I've found that through one of my really, really good friends, that conflict is not something to be afraid of. It's something to embrace because the wounds of a friend are trustworthy. So really enjoyed the conflict segment and am always challenged by it.